I'm just so honored that you have, some time to spend with us. Tell our audience who you are, Charlotte, please.
I suppose I should really say hello to everybody and say thank you, honey, for you inviting me on to talk with you guys this evening. I'm humbled and privileged, really, to be here and have this conversation with you. So thank you for that. I am Charlotte Caldwell. I am the proud mummy of a little boy called Billy Caldwell. And it was Billy's case that actually changed the UK cannabis laws in June 2018. So as a specialist consultant on the GMC register could prescribe medical cannabis in the UK.
Wow. So there's some pretty tremendous history going on in Billy's case and all the pavement pounding that you've had to do to change the laws. I'm just really humbled too. I'm 70 years old. I've been a suffragette on this planet for quite a while, marching for our rights and stuff like that. But it never dawned on me I'd be marching for cannabis to save people and the planet.
Well, you look amazing for 70 years old. I can't believe that. Well done, you.
So tell our audience, darling, won't you please, the story that got you up here in front of, millions of people around the globe.
Welcome to Season 6 of the Cannabis Truth Podcast, where we speak the language of cannabis freely and uncensored while educating our audience on safe use of this live plant therapy. You should know what's in your cannabis, what's good and what's not, because cannabis does not come with an FDA stamp of approval, yet. The information you will find here comes straight from scientists and clinicians, doing the work and reporting their findings in reputable outlets. Hopefully, we can inspire you to research the facts as we know them today. Cannabis is an amazing alternative in health remedies, with the potential to alleviate typical disease problems and troubling side effects, even those caused by synthetic prescriptions. Here now is the host of the Cannabis Truth Podcast. She is a 21st century cannabis shaman, not a doctor, not a scientist. Raised by nuns and wolves in the verdant cattle pastures of the Oklahoma oil fields, here to amplify the truth of this great big story of cannabis in historical, political, scientific, and spiritual terms, so you can make educated decisions about the medicine you choose to ingest. Please welcome Honey Smith Walls.
There we go. Welcome to the Cannabis Truth Podcast. And I am so thrilled and honored to have some time with Charlotte Caldwell, mother of Billy, who changed the cannabis laws in the UK. So Charlotte, you're about to tell us when it all began, I think. Welcome to the show.
Hi, honey, thank you so much for having me. I'm really humbled, actually, that you've reached out and privileged to be here, and thank you for that.
We're delighted to have you and would love to hear you tell the story of what brought you to being on so many, in so many spaces to tell this story. You've changed history globally, because once a whole country, starts changing their laws, then the other countries take notice and want to know what's going on and usually follow suit if it's a good thing.
Okay. Well, I suppose really I should go back till, 2016. I should start there, really. So my little boy, Billy, has a very rare form of epilepsy. He is a status epileptic, which means when Billy goes into a seizure, he normally can't stop the seizure on his own. And I have to administer rescue meds and oxygen because Billy goes blue. And normally that doesn't work. So it is a 999 call, and we go to A&E, and then the doctors start working on Billy then, administering all sorts of quite potent pharmaceuticals to get the seizure to stop. So in June 2016, I should start there really, I took my little boy Billy to a world-ranking pediatric neurologist in in Los Angeles, a Professor Nordley. And after Billy underwent a number of diagnostic tests, one being where Billy had a number of different MRIs and a consultation with the epilepsy brain surgery team. However, Billy wasn't a candidate for epilepsy brain surgery, as Professor Norley described. His little brain was lighting up all over, just like a birthday cake. So they couldn't actually find, one specific focus to remove that part of the brain that was causing his life-threatening form of epilepsy. So Billy was referred to a medical cannabis specialist, and he got prescribed medical cannabis. And they started him off first on CBD whole plant, which was microdosed up very slowly. And albeit we know that there is a trace of THC in that particular whole plant, all whole plant products, but it's normally non-quantifiable on a COA. So Billy started, and it took a number of weeks, and I didn't actually see any improvement in Billy until around week 10. And it was at that stage, I suppose I should say, Billy was having anything between 300, 600 seizures per day. Prolonged seizures. It was just, he was cycling. It was just in a constant cycle. So I started to see that this plant was helping Billy. And the first, thoughts that I had was really like that. The quantity of Billy's seizures weren't reducing, but the actual length of the seizure was reducing, which was huge for us. And then like week 11, week 12, and between sort of week 10 and week 12, Billy's seizures had reduced till basically 94% reduction in his seizures, which, like, even now I am struggling to actually describe this to the public, because it was just such, for me, like witnessing a miracle, and a lot of people would go, well, that's really hard to believe. And I know it is hard to believe, but that is the absolute truth. So Billy's prescriber then decided to prescribe a little bit of THC. He said, let's see if we can now get Billy to 100% seizure free. However, after the second dose of THC, which bear in mind was only like a minuscule dose, which was given to him with his whole plant CBD, Billy went into a full-blown status seizure that I couldn't get stopped. And he was blue lighted to the Children's Hospital in Los Angeles, where the THC was stopped. And he was hospitalized for 5 days. He was in quite a bad way. So the medical cannabis specialist then decided to add a little bit of THCA instead of the THC. And between the CBD whole plant and the THCA, that took Billy actually to complete seizure freedom.
The THCA did?
Yes, complete seizure freedom. So we had at that stage then been in Los Angeles probably about 8 months. And we then came home to Northern Ireland in March of 2017. And in April 2017, Billy's GP wrote the first ever NHS prescription for whole plant medical cannabis in the UK. And Billy was allowed to continue that medicine up until May 2018. And in May 2018, Billy's GP was taken to a hotel in Belfast by the powers that be and told to stop prescribing medical cannabis for Billy Caldwell, or they would have him struck off. So that left Billy.
But did they give a reason?
No. Well, you see, it was illegal in the UK.
Oh, that was
cannabis was illegal. Yes.
Okay.
So that left Billy with 3 weeks medicine and in crisis situation. So I found myself scouring the globe. The Department of Health called me and said, look, if you can find a medical cannabis product that has been through, a study or a clinical trial in children like Billy, we will allow Billy's GP to continue prescribing. So I scoured the globe and I found a doctor in the Children's Hospital in Toronto, a paediatric neurologist that was carrying out a study in children like Billy with medical cannabis.
Was it Bonnie Goldstein?
No, Dr. Blackwell McCoy.
So you found that doctor and?
Yeah, she was in the process of doing a study, trial on children like Billy with medical cannabis. Uh-huh. So I flew Billy to the Children's Hospital in Toronto and he underwent a number of diagnostic tests and Dr. McCoy onboarded Billy onto the trial. And she gave me a huge purple file with all the COAs of the medicine, the protocol about the trial, everything that anybody from a clinician's perspective would need to know and understand.
Right.
And Billy, and then I also had 6 months supply of Billy's medical cannabis. So we flew back into London Heathrow Airport and went through customs. I declared customs, showed them this huge purple file with all the information in it. But unfortunately, tearful customs confiscated Billy's medicine.
Oh my God.
So the customs guys were lovely. They were lovely. Like one of the customs guys said, I'm a father myself and, I understand, you're just trying to keep your child well. And he was really, really sorry. He was actually crying with me in the customs room, So we had, there was a letter had been left at customs by the then Policing and Justice Minister in London, for the UK, which was a guy called Nick Hurd. And he invited me to come and have a meeting with him. Oh. It was really odd, honey, really odd behaviour. However, I went, travelled from London Heathrow Airport to the Home Office in London. And Billy and I went into the meeting and Nick Hurd was sitting with 8 lawyers around him. And I asked him for Billy's medicine back and he said no. And I explained to him then the consequences or, what if he didn't return Billy's medicine, the consequences for Billy was death. Yes. This was Billy's anti-epileptic pharmaceutical drug. That's what it was to me. And that's the only way I could explain it to him because he had no concept or understanding of cannabis. And he just couldn't and wouldn't accept that cannabis was actually Billy's medicine.
Stigmatized by the history of cannabis.
Yeah, so I just felt the only way I could try and explain it to make him understand was this was Billy's anti-epileptic medication, if that makes sense. It was controlling his seizures. Yes. But no, he just refused to give it back. So that was on the Monday morning. That was a Monday. And Wednesday, Billy had his first seizure. And Thursday, he had 2. And Friday morning, he woke up on a prolonged status seizure. And he was blue lighted to the Chelsea and Westminster Hospital in London. And the doctors worked on him for hours, and they couldn't get the seizure stopped. And about 11 o'clock on that Friday night, the actual treating, I should say, bear in mind, the treating NHS doctor was treating Billy with his hands tied behind his back, because his medicine was just literally 2 miles down the road in the vaults of the Home Office. So they'd taken Billy's medicine from London Heathrow to the vaults of the Home Office, which was, as I said, 2 miles down the road. So at 11 o'clock on the Friday night, the doctor came into the room and said, look, I'm going to get your little boy's medicine back. And it was the actual, Dr. Alexander was his name, a lovely man. He negotiated all night with the Home Office, and the Home Office sent Billy's medicine back the next morning via taxi.
My God.
To the hospital. And it was basically came in through the back door of the pharmacy. And then the doctor had to write the prescription, and Billy's, and that's how Billy got it administered. So he got his NHS prescription reinstated right there, which was again a first for the UK. So Billy got his first dose on Saturday morning, another dose just Saturday afternoon. By Saturday evening, he was sitting up eating the yogurt. The seizure had stopped.
Oh, my glory.
Sunday, he had a full Sunday lunch, and Monday morning, he was discharged and ran out through the hospital doors to meet the world's press.
Charlotte, such a gut-wrenching story. I'm just flabbergasted by what you've been through.
Let's go, Master. He's away. He's the toy. He's spotted the toy. Okay, do you want to come and stand with Mummy a minute? Let me pack them up. Yeah.
Hi, Honey Smith Walls here. I'm host of the Cannabis Truth Podcast, weekly for the past 6 years. But today I'm inviting you to a Facebook group called the Holistic Relief Summit, in hopes that you too will come for the peace and stay for the epiphanies. It's a beautiful space for women to find all kinds of relief from all kinds of suffering. Come join us for free.
Well, hello, I'm Dr. Philip Blair, and I want to introduce you to Honey Smith Walls. And she recently had an experience with beta caryophyllene.
For years, I've been dealing with lots of arthritis pain and pain from neuropathy that has not been resolved through other prescriptive methods. As an advocate educator in the cannabis industry, I learn lots of interesting information about the compounds within the plants, and one of those turned out to be beta caryophyllene.
What was your first dose like?
I was gobsmacked. Absolutely gobsmacked. It has given me my future back.
I want to get it out to everybody too. I want to get it out to the whole world, as a matter of fact. It has so many mitigating factors for all the stresses of life and pain and diseases. It is unbelievable, the spectrum of care that it can provide.
I'm just flabbergasted by what you've been through.
Well, it was Billy really that suffered, and I always say that. I was just his voice. It was Billy. So that was the Monday, and on the next day was Tuesday, and the Home Secretary, who was a really good man as well, called Sajid Javad, stood up in Parliament, and he announced he had given Billy Caldwell back his medicine. So Billy had his NHS funding or his NHS prescription reinstated. He had issued Billy with the first ever licence in the UK then as well to be have medical cannabis administered, because remember, medical cannabis was illegal in the UK at that time. And he said he was going to appoint Dame Sally Davies to go and do some research and find out if cannabis had any medicinal value. And so then on the 26th of July, which was Billy's 12th birthday, we knew that we had been informed by the Home Office, by one of Sajid's advisors, that he was going to announce he was changing the law. So we gave that as a gift. He made that announcement as a gift to Billy on the 26th of July. And then on the 1st of November 2018, he changed the law so as specialist consultants could prescribe medical cannabis in the UK. And that's quite literally how it happened.
That is so amazing. I just love your courage and, fortitude. And, well, of course, it's, a mother's courage to just keep going. I'm so proud for you. How's Billy doing today?
He's doing incredibly well. He's Billy, he's not just surviving, he's thriving. And I think for me, I'll always be incredibly proud of him because, he changed a 50-year-old outdated, unjust law that many other advocates and lobbyists had tried to do previously, and they couldn't. So here it was, a little boy from the foothills of Castledairg. He, took on the British government and he won. Wow. He's the one that's brave and courageous, and I'm very, very proud of him.
How old is Billy now?
He's 19 now.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, those teenage years. Wow.
Exactly.
So I know that you have a book, right?
I'm sorry?
Are you not? Sorry, let me start that again. Did you author a book?
No.
I surely thought you had a book out about this. It's such an amazing story. Have doctors been in touch with you all this time about clinical studies and, how the community is changing?
Yeah, well, I speak to quite a number of doctors on a weekly basis. There is, the UK. Sorry, Billy's just come over. Honey, 1 second. So the UK is, I think, we now have thousands of patients across the UK being prescribed medical cannabis. However, it is. Those patients have no access on the NHS, which means every one of those patients is paying for their medicine. Whereas Billy gets his, on the NHS, so we don't have to pay for it. So we have a lot of work to do, honey, really, because we must open up wider access. Billy and I went on after June 2018 and all of that, and set up the I Am Billy Foundation. And through that foundation, we support thousands of patients, in assisting them in any way we can. But it's the UK is a difficult one because here we are 7 years on since Billy changed the law. There is really no access for whole plant medical cannabis via the NHS. We have 3 products in which are licensed medical cannabis products. So those 3 products have gone through clinical trials, which are very randomized clinical trials, which are costly and very lengthy.
Yes.
And so we have 3 products available, but those products are not whole plant. They're basically isolates, which I support. However, in Billy's case, and for many, many patients, they need the whole plant. So we have a lot of work to do because we've got to try and somehow open up access so as vulnerable chronically ill patients like Billy can actually access their medicine like Billy does.
Right.
We have 42, maybe 45 now private clinics in the UK that are prescribing medical cannabis. But again, so the patients have to pay for the consultation fee with the doctors, and then they have to pay for their medication. And, some of those patients are paying like anything between £300 and £700 in sterling per month. These are, as I said, like vulnerable chronically ill patients. A lot of them don't work. They can't work because they are very sick people. And they are really, really struggling. So there is much to do, as I said, to try and open up NHS access. And what's happening as well, honey, in the UK, and I'm not sure if where your guys are at is the same, these patients are really struggling also for consistent quality supply of their medicine. Like I have patients that are dispensed medicine, they have mold on their flower, they have seeds in their flower, insects in their flower, consistent supply. Well, that is out of reach for the majority of patients. They will pay this huge amounts of money to have medical cannabis prescribed at a private clinic. The first prescription arrives on time, and the second, and maybe even the third. And then, all of a sudden the medicine is out of stock. So there is no consistent supply, which I get incredibly frustrated about because for me, these patients, I hear it every day, honey, they email me, they call me, and, you're crying with the patient on the phone because these are people, like I have a lot of MS patients, patients with fibromyalgia. So, these patients are crippled in severe pain and
anxiety that comes along with all of that.
Yes. It's huge. It breaks my heart. Let me just put it like that. It's absolutely heartbreaking.
But it's all preventable through politics.
Yeah, well, like for me, it's nearly 7 years after Billy nearly died, changing the UK medical cannabis law, and the sector is in total disarray. So this private sector that I'm talking about is driven not by legislation, but it's the failure of the actual cannabis industry. Patients, are needlessly suffering. They face ongoing an ongoing inability. It's quite crazy, honey, for me to be saying this, but I have to say it again. But an ongoing inability to access consistent, high quality medicine at an affordable price. And patients face ongoing inability to receive truly patient-centred care. We have private prescribers in the UK that are paid commission per gram of flower that they prescribe to patients. So the more they prescribe, the higher the THC they prescribe, the more money the doctor makes, and that's on top of the consultation fee. It is absolutely
That's a
shocking.
big pharma scheme.
Yes.
That's
and I would like
that's the
absolutely because those
dog.
Yeah, absolutely, because those prescribers, you know, they are fostering unethical and excessive prescribing, and for me, that's just further fueling the stigma that we're all working so hard to erase.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm just horrified by all of it, really. And
well, you know, when you have, honey, like, you know, NHS doctors watching, the regulators are watching, the government is watching, like, this is just not pure practice. For me, it's actually a betrayal to everything that we have worked so hard to achieve.
Right.
And for me, it's, you know, common sense. In any industry, be it, you know, the chocolate industry or the bread industry, progression of legislation will not progress until those responsible start to behave.
Well, I guess if one thing is certain, Charlotte, we have to make them behave. We have to force them to behave. And that means not genetically altering our food seeds so that they will accept more pesticides when they're growing, so that we're not eating pesticides and getting sick from all of that stuff. But that's what Monsanto has done. So, you know, our illnesses in humanity and the animal kingdom have come directly from the foods that we eat, and yet food can be, you know, our healing, our medicine. And like cannabis, if you're not getting the whole product, if you're only getting an isolate, then you don't have the benefit of the synergy of that team of compounds working in your body with that receptor system that goes throughout your whole body. That's why cannabis is so important as a healing compounds, I'm saying it plural, for humanity and for animals too. So
yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. I think for me, the point I'm trying to say is, you know, these are vulnerable, chronically ill patients. They need a medicine that is fit for purpose. They need consistent quality supply.
yes,
You know, and until the industry, I'm talking the UK industry here. Like I said, honey, I don't know what the cannabis industry is like where you guys are at, or
it's a carnival down here. It's a carnival. It's crazy, batshit crazy, Charlotte. It's just hideous. And we don't have any insurance either. And dispensaries just sell the highest THC crap that they can. It's horrifying for patients. There's no education. I'm trying to dedicate my teachings to help women because of the suffering that we do. And, you know, and they can help their guys or whatever. But, you know, it's so hard to get anywhere because of the laws.
But I'm trying to understand, honey, why the industry is struggling to supply consistent quality supply to these patients. Why is that? Why do you think it is?
I think it's because, well, for us, it's still a federal crime. It's still a federally illegal. You know.
But you've just said that you can sell it. You guys can sell it in the dispensary. You can buy it in the dispensaries.
You can, but each state made it legal according to whatever their thoughts are about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so every state has a different law of what you can and cannot accept, or what you can and cannot get or have access to. Some states you can only get CBD products and hemp with absolutely no THC in it. Some states you can get everything you want and grow your own, but there's no education. And the dispensaries, like here in Michigan, only sell you the highest THC product. Again, corporate attitudes took over cannabis, and the tail is wagging the dog. And so these poor patients have nowhere to go to get any information. They're just sold out of their pocket, no insurance, the highest THC product that some 18-year-old or 21-year-old bud tender says, oh, yeah, my granny took this. She liked it a lot. So, that's not how medicine works. So it's a mess down here.
It's frightening. It's absolutely frightening, honey. I just find it, like here now in the UK, like on our socials. So I get patients sending me screenshots of this flower they've received, that is really poor quality, and how they're feeling. And I've just now started sharing it on our social media channels to see if the industry is actually going to take any notice, because until this industry actually puts their medicine where their mouth is and meets the regulators' expectations and puts patients first, meaningful reform will remain out of reach. So at the moment in the UK right now, it's medical, totally medical, prescribed by a doctor. There is no recreational legislation. But the industry is all like, this is what we're waiting for. That's what they would tell you. We want recreational legislation. But I'm like to them, like, how you're never going to get recreational legislation until you start to behave. And for the last 7 years, you have been really misbehaving. So how are we going to get there? Because
alcohol makes people misbehave.
In the UK, honey, in 7 years as well, there's only a small cohort of patients in 7 years. So in 7 years, we have about approximately 40, maybe 45,000 patients in 7 years. Like, that is actually shameful.
It is.
And, so if the industry right now in the UK cannot supply for 45,000 patients, how are they ever going to supply consistent supply of medicine or consistent supply of recreational, whatever you want to say? How are they if that opens up, or even if they open up NHS access, whereas patients can get it free? How is this industry ever going to supply them when they can't supply and provide patient-centered care for 45,000 patients?
Because they're struggling to understand the difference between recreational and patients.
Yeah.
And they're so screwed up in their heads about people getting high. I don't care if people want to get high. People want to get drunk. But the difference is that you're not going to do something so stupid when you get high as like you are when you get drunk, because alcohol affects you so negatively when you're drinking, and cannabis doesn't when you're just out.
Oh, I know.
So I'm saying that.
Yeah, no, I get that. I get that. I get that. And it's for me, it's really, really important. I think my mission is to open up NHS access for all of these other thousands of vulnerable, chronically ill patients. Yeah. But it's really a real challenge, honey, to do that when the industry is not supplying consistent supply. Because in our NHS here in the UK, if you go to your doctor and an NHS doctor writes your prescription, you walk across the road, you give it your prescription into the pharmacy, and you go home with your medication. But that doctor will only prescribe that medication if he understands and is aware that it is consistent quality supply. So we're stuck. It's like a vicious circle. How do we get NHS access when there's no consistent supply? So there you have it.
I think NHS is going to have to change their criteria and give permission first, and then based on what they say the rules are going to be, then start allowing the people to create the products in the way that humanity needs them. See,
the problem we have.
It's only an
the problem we have. The problem we have is, honey, the doctors are not going to do that because they're on the GMC registrar, so they're licensed to practice, and they would be scared of losing their license if something happened with one of those patients. If say a product that they prescribed and the patient had a detrimental effect.
Yeah, and also on top of that, they don't know so much about cannabis that they're afraid of something that isn't going to happen. They're afraid of their own imaginations, and they're telling themselves stories that are not true about cannabis because you don't have those kind of death, events. Death render.
We have patients
cannabis that you do.
Yeah, but we do have. But I would say, maybe I'm not explaining it correctly, honey, but I would say this is that because of poor quality product.
Yeah.
So, for example, mold, seeds, inconsistent supply, the product is stale. Because this is what's being dispensed to patients, and patients are getting ill in the UK. There's patients that contact me and they're vaping this, and their chest is, some of the patients have had to be hospitalised, but it's really affecting their chest. That's why I'm saying the doctors won't prescribe. The NHS doctors will not prescribe. They won't even start prescribing unless there is quality supply, because they also, not only do they have their GMC license to protect, they also, in the UK, and I don't know if, you guys are the same where you're at in Arizona, but they also pay what's called as an identity insurance, which means that insurance covers them. So if a patient, does die or have a detrimental effect against something that the doctor has prescribed or whatever care that particular doctor has given them, the patient can claim of the insurance. But one of the criteria of that that identity insurance is you've got to make sure that that them products are fit for purpose. You've got to make sure that product has got consistent quality supply.
Right.
So that's the problem right there. That's why the NHS doctors will not prescribe. And on top of that, then these are all unlicensed medicines.
So let me ask.
So they're not licensed.
Do you believe that cannabis medicines are better grown indoors than outdoors for that reason, for consistency of quality?
I think each to their own. I think there's for me right now. So in Billy's case, so I'm just going to use Billy as an example, honey. Yeah. So Billy's has an NHS funded prescription. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the NHS is very tightly regulated here, and we're blessed to have that because we just couldn't afford to pay for Billy's medicine. But Billy's medicine has to be pharmacologically consistent and a pharmaceutical standard.
Right.
Otherwise, he will not get NHS funding and we will have to go and pay privately.
Right.
So going back to your question about growing indoors, I would imagine for Billy's medicine, that's probably the best solution because therefore the grower and the manufacturer has a better chance of producing a pharmacologically consistent pharmaceutical standard medicine for Billy.
I believe that too.
Yeah, I and I look at Billy and I think to myself, well, if they can do it for Billy, why can they not do it for the other 44,000 patients in the UK?
Exactly.
or the other 44,999 or whatever it is. Yeah.
So the answer is they can do it. They're not doing it.
Exactly. That's what I think's happening. And I think what you said before, honey, around, you go into the dispensary and it's like basically potluck, what you're getting, and you're advised by a 20-year-old bud tender. Right. I think that's what the UK medical, and I'm putting medical in inverted commas, that's what the UK medical market, that's the type of products that they are providing. And for me right now, they should be hanging their heads in shame, because they know only too well that in the UK right now, there's thousands of vulnerable chronically ill patients that can't afford this medicine. They know that in the UK right now, there is thousands upon thousands of people going through a cost of living crisis. They know in the UK right now that those vulnerable chronically ill patients that are receiving disability benefits are about to have them all cut by the British government. It is a complete and utter scandal. But, the only way we can do it, honey, is if we go out and raise a load of money and build our own facility and start making sure that these patients get consistent supply, because right now the industry is not listening. And that's how I feel. I feel it's a huge betrayal to everything that Billy achieved. And I'm really, really frustrated.
Yes.
Some days I'm angry. Yeah. Some days I'm sad.
Yes.
And I just feel sometimes, that I'm hoping that in 7 years' time, honey, that I'm not coming back onto your program and we're having the same discussion. And that's, I suppose, all I can say, really.
Well, Charlotte, I'm sure it will be mothers like you who continue to change the trajectory of this discussion and the ideas in politicians' heads about cannabis and its life-saving compounds and properties. It's not just about life-saving for humans. Audience, they're making airplanes with cannabis. They make cars with cannabis. They cleaned up Chernobyl with cannabis. They have water filtration with cannabis. They have regenerative farming with cannabis. This plant can save our world and the humans on it. Otherwise, I just heard in a documentary last night, 50 years from now, we're going to be having food shortages globally. And that was a scary damn thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course. Yeah, it is.
So, yeah, we've got to get the politicians to understand that their mothers will have cancer too. They need to do something.
Well, I think here in the UK, I've had numerous discussions, very positive discussions with a lot of politicians from around the UK and, the Channel Islands, which is just off the UK. But I don't know if it's the same where you are, honey, but in the UK, there is no politician that is able to tell a doctor to prescribe. So we've got to start. Do you understand me? We've got to start. I feel sometimes like we've got to go back to 2018 in the UK when Billy changed the law. And the industry has got to start building the foundations, because that's what happened. They didn't build the foundations. They just all came swarming into the UK, setting up these companies, and they didn't think, hang on a minute, this is not going to work unless we bring the doctors with us, unless we actually can say to the doctor, look, you know what, this is our facility, come visit it. We're growing it, pharmacologically consistent, pharmaceutical standard. We can produce and we can give you and reassure you that there is going to be consistent quality supply. That never happens.
Yes, it just has to be proven, and there are obviously ways of doing that. But down here in the U.S., it's much the same, Charlotte, and we don't have. What they've done is they taught us to forget about cannabis in the past 100 years, because before cannabis was ripped out of the pharmacopoeia of all of the doctors, and before cannabis was ripped out of the curriculum at medicine school. And as big pharma came into existence after the creation of the antibiotic pill, penicillin pill during World War I, it was just too damn hard to mess with plant medicine. But before that, all of our meds were plant medicine. All of them, and even Eli Lilly and Parker and some of the other big names in pharmaceuticals, they actually created cannabis products, and we've got historical pictures and data, showing all of that. So the promotional hoo-ha to get rid of cannabis out of our society worked really well, and I think we need to have, and as mothers, we have a much larger voice and much more motivation to make this happen than those damn politicians who are just greedy bastards who, are in it for the money or the power or whatever. So that's all got to change. And there was a huge mothers' migration to Colorado when they found out that hemp would save their baby's seizures. That was huge. Yeah. And that's before that, it was Brownie Mary going around helping the AIDS victims, along the East Coast. And so it was in the health industry that cannabis began, rising again. And your story is so important to that history. So we're so grateful to you, Charlotte. Can you come back on and show us your sweet self and tell us how we can get in touch with you if we'd like to have more conversation about, changing the laws?
Right, so hang on, let's see.
Here you are. Hey, bud, how you doing? So sweet to see you. Nice to see you, Billy.
You're sort of breaking up. Hang on.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Thank you for that.
Sorry,
that was
honey.
Precious.
When you were speaking, I just put the camera off so as I could hear you correctly because it was going a little bit etchy.
Thank you. Thank you for that. It's so sweet to see you. So sweet. And I just got I just lost my picture of you.
That's a lovely picture. Thank you. It's gorgeous.
Good. So anyway, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, tell us how they can find you, Charlotte.
So they can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or should I say X, or through the I Am Billy Foundation website. So they can find us on most social medias and through the website. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. That'll be perfect. And we'll be sure and have some of those links available in the chat or wherever wherever you find us to see the podcast. Billy, sending love and hugs to you and your mama, your brave mama and your brave self. Thank you for all of your work. It's so great.
Thank you.
Great to have you, honey.
Hang on. All right. Say thank you. Bye. Thank you. He's good. Thank you very much. It was lovely to meet you.
Thanks so much, Charlotte. See you next time.
You've been listening to another Cannabis Truth Podcast with 21st century cannabis shaman Honey Smith Walls. Using cannabis mindfully as medication is a different concept in Western healthcare philosophy, specifically over the past century. There's a lot to learn and reconsider. The scientific truth of cannabis is finally getting out and is wide open for all to see at respected medical sites like the National Library of Medicine at pubmed.gov and the Journal of American Medical Association at JAMAnetwork.com. We here at the Cannabis Truth Podcast are right there in the thick of it, alongside the titans of medicine, as a fly on the wall. We are not doctors, nor did we go to medical school, but we have taken dozens of private cannabis courses and still engage in continuing education offered by expert cannabis scientists. Over the past few years, we slowly began to see and understand the bigger picture. Now we hear from people all day long about cannabis. It is so important to use verifiably safe products. The process of getting a diagnosis from your family doctor and taking your records to a cannabis specialist can lead you to the correct cannabinoid therapy for your specific issues. Otherwise, you're simply your own guinea pig looking for answers without the foundational knowledge or ability to determine your best strategy. To find a qualified cannabis expert in your area, visit cannabisclinicians.org. This is a national society of cannabis experts. Look for the link in the show notes. Unless otherwise proven by a reputable third-party lab test, please regard all street weed as contaminated. It may do grave harm to a patient with a delicate immune system who already has inflammatory issues like arthritis, IBS, fibromyalgia, or worse. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope you find value and understanding through the conversations you've heard on this podcast.